much for joining us for the 2020 Grit and Grace Conference virtually, because that's how this year is going. It was so cool to see you guys all on that chat, welcoming each other from all across the country. And we know there are participants from all across the globe. So thank you for joining us on this Friday. My name is Genevieve Rayom. I'm going to be your MC today. We have an incredible day planned out for you. We're going to start out with an introduction by our founder and president, Gayatri Ramprasad. But before that, I want to tell you how the flow of today is going to go. So we're going to have the same format in the morning session and in the afternoon session. It's going to start out with a movement instruction followed by 2 topical speakers. And then after that, we're going to do talking circles. And that is the time we really want you guys to engage with us. Ask us questions. You can submit them in the Q&A prompt below. And you may notice that some of these recordings, some of these speakers are actually recordings. And so the idea is that you can submit those questions as you think about them in that chat box. And then for those talking circles, that's when those speakers will join us live again, and they'll be able to answer your questions. So don't be afraid to start submitting those questions right away. We encourage you to do that. We want to connect with you, even though we have to do it virtually this year. As for the talking circles, now those are actually normally called peacemaking circles, and they come from the indigenous people, specifically a lot of tribes in the Midwest area. And they're all about making sure that we are equal, that we are in the same circle, no one is trumping someone else. So we want to make sure that you feel comfortable sharing your story and that you're not afraid and that you don't feel like anyone else is taking power of that circle. So those are very intentional moments, and we want to make sure that you are all a part of that. Before we get started though, I do want to get some of the logistics out of the way. I know that we are doing this virtually because that's what 2020 is all about. There are some benefits to that. I hope you're able to sit at your home and on your couch, maybe in your sweatpants. I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't wearing slippers right now. But don't worry, your microphone and your video cannot be activated as a participant. So don't worry, we cannot see or hear you. But if you do have questions, if you do want to connect with the participants, as many of you have already been doing, utilize that chat icon below. It looks like a speech bubble there. I already have 46 notifications of people saying hello and letting us know where they're joining from. Feel free to continue to do that if you want to connect with other participants, or if you need to connect with our team. If you're having some difficulties, you can also use that chat icon below. And while you're here, we know the power of social media, so please feel free to share your story, to share a picture on social media using the hashtag #MyStoryMySuperpower. We want to feel connected in this. We know that we are all coming from different parts of this country, different parts of the globe, but if you are comfortable, feel free to share your story and your picture or video on social media. We also want to share our 2020 sponsors, because as all of you guys know, this is incredible. We were able to do this conference for free this year. This is not normally something that we do for free, but this year we were able to do it because of these sponsors. So I definitely want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors: Alchemist, Northwest Women's Clinic, Janssen, Active Recovery TMS, Cascadia Behavioral Healthcare, Rainier Springs, Life Qual Center, and MACBO. We sincerely could not do this without your guys' support, and we are so appreciative that we're able to do this for free this year, because we talked as a board and we knew it was extremely important that we allowed anyone and everyone to join this conference, considering where we are in the globe and where we are as a community. We did not want finances to be a barrier for anyone. But if you are able to donate, we would greatly appreciate it. We will take whatever you're able and comfortable to give. But if you are inspired and you feel moved by what you see today, feel free to donate. You can just go to myasha.org/gritandgrace. It's the and sign, not A-N-D. We'll also chat out the link for you so you can see. It's just an easy click away. So feel free to donate throughout the day if you are able. It allows us to continue to do the life-saving work that we believe that we do. Okay, without further ado, I am so excited to bring in ASHA founder and president, Gayatri Ramprasad. Gayatri, I know that this has been a long process planning this conference this year. It's been different than any years past, but we felt it was so important to offer this conference free this year, considering what's going on in our community. You know, at the beginning of 2020, we were isolated by this pandemic, and as it continued, people were motivated and moved by this fight for racial justice, fighting against systemic racism. And we know that Black and Indigenous communities are hit hardest with both of those elements. Can you give us a history of Grit and Grace and what it's about and why it's so important at this very moment in time?
Thank you, Genevieve, and welcome to each and every one of you. Namaste. I am so grateful for all of us to come together today. I understand how difficult this year has been, but it's so incredible. Every day I meditate and I journal. And even this morning, as I was journaling about the incredible grit and grace within every one of us, despite the pandemic, despite the racial injustice, despite the inexplicable, inordinate impact on communities of color. And, most recently, the wildfires here in Oregon, really across the West Coast, and the impact that has had in all of our lives. And yet, every one of us wakes up and shows up for our life. So I want to start out by saying welcome to each and every one of you. And I absolutely honor your grit and grace. Representation matters. As an immigrant and a person of color who struggled with acute anxiety and panic attacks and depression and suicidal ideation, I was one of the lucky ones. I had access to mental health care, but even then, the stigma, the shame, and the deep sense of isolation that I experienced as a young mother here in America drove me to the brink of suicide over and over and over again. And by the time I was 27 years old, I wanted to end it all. And it is in the midst of this pit of darkness and despair that a stranger came to hold me in her arms in the most unusual of places, in the psychiatric ward. Her name was Aida. I remember her as Aida, the angel, and an angel she was in my life. So Aida had heard about my struggles with depression and my most recent suicide attempt and hospitalization. And she had come to hold me in her arms and share her own story to give me hope and let me know that I was not alone. In the few minutes that Aida shared her story, for the first time in my life, I knew that I wasn't alone, that I wasn't insane, that I wasn't weak, that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't possessed. All of these things that our cultures and our world tells us who we are when we are a person struggling with mental health conditions. And yet, here was a woman with the power of her own story, the story of her struggle and resilience, gave me the gift of hope that changed my life forever. And every day, in every way, with every breath, I try to pay Aida's gift of hope forward through Asha International. Asha literally means hope in Sanskrit, one of the world's most ancient languages that originated in India, and in Hindi, India's national language. In English, Asha is an acronym for a source of hope for all. At Asha International, we are acutely aware of the barriers to mental health faced by communities of color and other underrepresented communities, whether it be the LGBTQ community, immigrant community, the refugee community. And I truly believe that while mental illness has no barriers, hope and healing have no boundaries. And out of my own pain grew this purpose to build a community of empathy, of support, and of inclusion for all of us, no matter who we are, no matter the color of our skin, no matter our culture, no matter our race. So that is what drives me each day. And that is what inspired me to start Asha International. And that is what inspired me to create the Grit and Grace Conference, to bring people from across cultures together, to share their stories of struggle and hope and resilience, to embrace each other with love and compassion. And now more than any time in the history of our lives, we need to come together to embrace each other with love, with compassion, and let each other know that together we are going to not only survive, but we are going to rise above all these difficulties in our life right now, kinder, stronger, and more resilient.
Every time I hear your story, Gayatri, I'm always so moved by it. I know we are very intentional about the speakers that come on the Grit and Grace Conference, and we have an incredible panel of people who will be talking with us. So I want to get started right away to make sure that we have time for everyone. Thank you, Gayatri. The first speaker that we're going to have is Talia Thomas, and what she's going to do is going to be breathe, movement, and play with Talia Renee Thomas. Now, she is a practitioner of Katona Yoga, syncretic hatha yoga practice. Sorry, I'm learning all of these words today. She will teach us how to breathe deeply and into our body and disengage from the chatter of our minds through laughter, breath work, movement, gratitude, and love meditation. So here is Talia.
Oh, I am so excited to be here. My name's Talia Thomas, and I'm currently in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, as I join you here for this incredible conference that is about supporting the mental wellness of all of us. And it's about meeting ourselves with love and compassion in the midst of it all. And I really feel like it's a great time to learn that, to learn. We've got time. A lot of us are have more time to ourselves than we've had in a long time. And so going back and learning these lessons that I wish I had learned at a really young age. How do we love ourselves? How do we support ourselves? How do we not judge ourselves? For me, one of the greatest tools that it's been to discover that has been yoga. And it was, yoga literally changed my life. I had been working at a job for like a hedge fund for a lot of years, and it was great. It supported me when I needed it the most. I was a single mom living in Steamboat. It allowed me to send my daughter to private school. It afforded me a lot. But then there just came this moment when it just wasn't working anymore, and I saw my life kind of falling down around me. And I had a 2-year-old son at the time, actually not even 2, probably 9 months at the time, and I had this decision to make about what I did with the amount of money that I had left and all these different things. And I'd been doing physical fitness my whole life, and I decided yoga in Boulder, Colorado. I was in Steamboat and driving back and forth to Boulder, taking yoga classes, doing yoga teacher training. And I remember the first time I walked into that yoga teacher training and I sat down and they handed us these notebooks, these books, like all in our little binders. And we're sitting there, and the yoga teacher said, that my teacher at the time, she said, okay, let's get ready to round robin read. And I was like, oh, wow, like I can't read. I don't want to be reading in front of these people. I'm 37 years old and like terrified to read in front of people, because an experience I had when I was in 4th grade in Boulder at school, where my mom had switched me to a brand new school. I went to this one school, it was called Uni Hill University, and it was English and Spanish classes and multicultural, very culturally rich. It was a very culturally rich school. And she moved me into this extremely white, affluent school, and we were sitting in desks. I'd never sat in a desk before. And on the first day, not only was I sitting in a desk, but I was sitting next to this really cute guy. I totally had a crush on him. I was like, oh, he's so cute. And I went up to my teacher and I was like, hey, I feel uncomfortable reading out loud. I feel uncomfortable reading in front of people. Can you not call on me? I went back to my seat, and of course she calls on me. And I just remember freaking out, sweating profusely. My daughter tells me not to tell this part, but I literally peed my pants a little bit. I had to run out of the room crying. Because when I read every word wrong. My eyes went blurry, and I felt like I was being made fun of by all the kids in my class, being the only Black student as well. And so I ran out of class, and I never read in front of people ever again. Like, that was it. I was like, I'm stupid. I'm dumb. I'm not reading. This is not a thing. So back to that first yoga teacher training where I'm sitting down, and here's this book, and I'm like round robin reading. Every single time it came around to me, I found an excuse. I was like, I'm out of here. Went to the bathroom. I've got to call my mom. She has my son. He's crying. I'm getting a phone call. Repeatedly created these excuses to avoid this, at the time I thought was a really core wound. And then it got to this point where I was like, this is awkward. It's weird. Can I give myself a chance? So I sat with it, and I went around. I remember the day I made that decision that I was going to read in front of this group of people. And it was like embodying that girl again. Like, little girl was right with me, like, okay, we're going to do this. We get a second shot. And I remember it coming around to me, and I'd been reading my spot over and over again, and I read it. I breathed first. The first thing I did, though, was I acknowledged my breath. And I took some deep breaths, and I breathed in, and I breathed out. And I read, and it was horrible. It was horrible. Like, I stuttered. It was just a mess. And I looked up, and no one said anything. And I was like, okay. And I did it again, and I did it again, and I did it again. And until I realized, like, wow, not only am I a really good reader, but I like reading in front of everybody, and I actually want to be the one who reads, because all the rest of y'all are boring. And so I read, and I became this really incredible student, and I just fell in love with yoga, because what yoga taught me was that something that I thought was a core wound, like was just definitely this thing in me, was an agreement that I made with myself. I actually could read really well, and I'm a great learner. Yoga gave me back a part of myself that had been taken away, and it continued to do that. It continued to make me feel better about who I am and accept myself. And it was through the breath that I really started to learn that. And so what I want to do with you guys today, my name is Talea Thomas. I'm not sure if I remembered if I introduced myself, because I love talking about yoga so much. And yoga, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but this is my home. It's a little mobile home, and I don't have a lot of space. And I want to teach people that yoga meets you exactly where you are. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter how many times you've done it. It doesn't matter if you're in a chair. It doesn't matter where you are on the planet. Like, yoga doesn't care what's in your bank account. Yoga meets you right where you are. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to meet wherever you are. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be this perfect environment. Find a place that you feel the most comfortable. Grab a seat. We're going to be in a seated position, and we're going to first work through some breath. That's going to take us into some movement. That's going to take us into learning a little bit about our skin and what our skin does. The skin that we're in. We're in this skin bag. So let's learn about what that skin is and what it can do for us. So if you want to join me, I'm ready. I'm going to sit here and let you guys, gather your surroundings after that little story I told you. And then when you're ready, go ahead and just relax into your skin, into your body. Start to begin to notice your breath. Notice how you're breathing. Notice what you're breathing with. I have this great teacher, Peter Sterios, and I love the way he talks about the breath. He talks about noticing the texture of your breath, the sound of your breath, noticing where you may stumble over your breath, and then seeing if you can smooth out the stumble, softening your breath. And as we're breathing together and discovering this breath that we have, this beautiful, beautiful breath, this life force breath, seal the lips softly. So allow your lips to be closed. As I teach breath work, I also like to teach about kind of like, why do we breathe through our nose? Well, it's because our nose has 4 filters. So when you're breathing in through your nose, you're filtering the oxygen, the air, the prana, the wind, right? We're creating wind as we breathe in through our nose that comes in through the nose. And it works with your respiratory system. Your nose works with your respiratory system, where your mouth works with your digestive system. So if we can just sit with that for a moment and just realize that, breathing in through your nose brings in clean oxygen. And as you're playing with the texture of your breath and you're thinking about the cleanliness of your breath as you breathe in and out of your nose, can we relax our bodies, our shoulders? Can we let them soften on every exhale? And wherever you are, as you're breathing, can you take a moment to listen into your surroundings? What sounds do you hear in the distance? I'm in my mobile home, my little RV, and I hear cars passing, I hear birds chirping, I hear my mouth and the inside of my mouth as I'm talking or swallowing. And I'd like you to take on the perspective or wonder about what sound tells you as you're breathing. Sound is information, and for me right now, it's telling me the distance of things. Like the sound of my mouth, that's like really near. It's inside of me. It's a sound that is made from inside, which sounds different than for me the car passing down the street, which is telling me about the distance. It's giving me a location. I'm hearing birds, and it's telling me that it's still warm outside. It's still spring, summer, by the way the bird is chirping. Notice your surroundings and the information that the sound is giving you. And at the same time, connect to your breath, breathing in and out of your nose. Feeling the texture of your breath, the warmth of your breath, the softness of your breath. What are you feeling in your body right now? What sensations are arising? And just be aware, what information is it telling you? I myself am feeling a little bit of restriction around my heart. So I'm going to take my breath and I'm going to inhale into my heart space. And then as I exhale, I'm going to soften that space around my heart. What are you feeling in your body? Where do you feel resistance or activation? And can you inhale into that space on your body that might be speaking to you, feeding you with information? And as you exhale, can you soften that space? Again, navigating your body, feeling your body, the sensations that are coming up with your inhale and softening as you exhale. A few more rounds of breath like that, just using your breath to help you release places in your physical body. And then slowly, 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 blinking your eyes open. Hi, how does everyone feel? I hope you feel well. I hope you feel relaxed and connected. And that's one thing, that's yoga. Yoga is connecting you. It's connecting you to the information that your body is telling you with your breath, getting presence inside of your skin and listening to it all, bringing it all in. Even like, I like to talk about like when I'm feeling anger or whatever, like even bringing that in and just being like, hey, you want a cookie? Like, it's okay. It's okay to feel all the feelings and then bring breath to all the feelings. And it really helps to relax you in your space. Another cool thing that I have learned from yoga is how to navigate through my body. And at first it was like, navigating through my body, through my physical yoga practice was really physical. It was really like doing lots of push-ups and the chaturangas and really like fast vinyasa. And that was how I first started to navigate learning being in my body through a physical yoga practice. And then over time, it's become more subtle, and I've learned to kind of play with it more. And what I'm learning now is I'm really learning about the yoga of my skin, the movement of my skin. So, and what I mean by that is, you know, every part of our body, from our mind to our breath to the blood flowing through us, has movement, can move, can do something. And so can your skin. I don't know if we often think about how our skin moves. So this is the movement piece of class that I want to really share with you guys today, is how our skin can really help us to move into ourselves more, to settle into ourselves more. So do you guys know, like, has anybody ever made a sausage where you have the skin, the outer skin, and there's like a sausage machine, and you attach the skin to the machine, and then you put the meat in the top and it grinds? And then as it grinds, what happens is it starts to make the sausage, right? The meat, the tissue, all goes into the sausage. And what stretches is not the stuff you're putting in, but the skin. The skin stretches to give space to the sausage for all of that inner stuff to move into. So when I like to talk about doing yoga and practicing the physical practice, I do a lot of practice with my skin and allow everything else to kind of move into that space. So for everybody out there who's watching, if you want to play around with me and play with our skin, let's just get a little physical inside of our bodies. What I want you to do is to slowly start to just reach your arms above your head. And I'm sorry you can't see my hands, but they're up there, I promise. So reach your arms above your head and just start stretching from side to side. Just stretch, just move. We're just starting to move our bodies. Maybe twist, maybe roll your head, play with your fingers, stretch your arms out. I'm like reaching out to grab you guys because I miss people. Do you guys miss people? So stretch out and say hi. And then stretch back in, stretch them out to the side. Maybe make some circles with your shoulders, forward and back. And just kind of wind it around. And then when you're ready, I want you to take your right arm or left arm, whatever side moves the best for you or doesn't move the best for you, whichever one you choose, and reach it up towards the sky. And then this is your nice long side body here. I want you to imagine from your hip crease that this layer of skin stretches up. And then go ahead all the way up through the arm. See if you can go ahead and let the skin stretch all the way up through the finger. And I don't know if you can visually see me, but really what just happened is my arm got longer. Just by the idea of the subtlety of stretching my skin. What that does is it gives an opportunity for the bones to settle into the joint, right? To really settle heavy into the joint, so into my shoulder joint. I can really drop my bones down while not feeling like I'm overstretching. What tends to happen is we stretch our shoulder up towards our ear. And I can get that same length by activating the stretch of my skin, and I can allow my bones to drop down. And that really gives me a lot of space and freedom to move. Do you guys feel that? Yeah. Try it on the other side. So again, shake it all out, like move the body. And then when you're ready, go ahead and reach the other arm up. Whichever arm you chose. You can play with it, you can twist it, you can kind of have some fun with it. And then again, from the hip crease all the way down, allow the skin, it's a really subtle shift, allow the skin to stretch up, all the way up through the arm. You feel that? It's nice. And then if you can allow the inside arm skin to stretch, and then maybe just all the skin around the arm stretches up. You can allow that shoulder to drop down and just kind of settle heavy into the socket. And just create so much freedom and space. And it's amazing. And then maybe from there, you take a little bend over to the side. Stretch the skin over to the side. And get a nice side bend. And then switching sides. Up and over. I have a prop here to help me. Stretching up through the skin, through the side body. And then slowly lowering back down. Same thing out in front of you. Just wherever your arms naturally reside them there. And then think about stretching the skin of the arms forward. And see what kind of length you get. And then stretch back. Bringing your hands to heart center. And just pausing, hanging out, pausing, breathing. Going back to that breath, that really beautiful, soft breath. Breathing in through your nose. Breathing out of your nose. And taking in information. Yoga really does meet you wherever you're at. Yoga is accessible to everyone. Yoga is free. Yoga is finding a space wherever you're at to connect with where you are, who you are in present moment. You absolutely do not need a fancy yoga mat. You absolutely do not need a fancy yoga studio. You absolutely do not need to pay $20 to take a yoga class. Yoga is free. And kind of like when I started, we have a lot of time right now and a lot of opportunity to really cultivate a relationship with these things that are free to us, learning how to love ourselves. This is free. Love is not something that we need to pay for, right? But it's not something that we often learn. Learning to have compassion for ourselves. Learning to, be vulnerable. To ask for help. These are all practices of yoga. Learning how our bodies work and move. Learning that we have the opportunity to control our breath and our breath can heal us. This is all yoga. And it doesn't cost a thing. And you don't have to be anywhere special. You can be right where you are. Yoga meets you right where you are at all times. And that has been the most powerful thing that I've learned. So I am so grateful for this opportunity to be here with you guys today. I'm so grateful that you played with me through a little breath work, through a little movement of our bodies, through letting me and allowing me to share a bit of my story and a bit about myself with you. I'm really grateful for that experience. And I hope you have a great rest of your conference today, being inspired by all of these inspiring women. It's really, really an honor to be a part of a culturally rich community. Namaste.
That was beautiful, Talea. Thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing your story. Oh my gosh, I hope all of you were able to experience those very important moments of centering ourselves. If you are in the Portland area or the Clackamas area, that I know many of you are, we've been socked in with smoke for more than a week now, and I hope when you were able to close your eyes, you could hear the raindrops falling outside your window. And as we extended and stretched our skin, I got my flu shot yesterday, and this morning I couldn't even bring my arm up past my shoulder, and I was finally able to do that. What a powerful moment. Thank you, Talea. I am very grateful for that kickoff to the 2020 Grit and Grace Conference. Now we're going to bring in our first topical speaker, Dr. Ruth White. She is a thought leader and a change catalyst. She's an advocate for mental health, as well as equity, diversity, and inclusion. And she's going to share something that I know all of us can relate to. She's going to talk about her story and coping with COVID-19, as well as how we can build emotional resilience.
Hi, thank you to Grit and Grace for having me at this conference today. I'm going to share with you a bit of who I am, my story, how I got to this place to be doing this work, and I will also share with you some strategies to manage the stress that is 2020. And if you are not feeling okay, it's okay to not feel okay. So a little bit about me. So about 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And a couple of years into my diagnosis, I found myself in a hospital. Now, I, as a social worker, had worked in mental health facilities before, and it was a real challenge to find myself on the other side of the practice continuum. So I was a patient for about 7 days. While I was there, I had a psychiatrist with whom I shared, what I did for a living, and he thought it was fascinating that I was a professor, I was a social worker, and we ended up having a lot of conversation around articles that I was reading because I decided that that was the only time that I was ever going to be hospitalized, and I was going to do whatever I could to not experience that again. And so when I came out of the hospital, I came out with, I think I was on 4 different psychotropic medications. And I was very, very fortunate to have a psychiatrist who was not necessarily anti-meds, but she believed that you could behave your way to a lot of health. And then what was left over, what you couldn't fix with your behavior, you medicated. And so I spent a lot of time using all the research skills that I developed as a PhD student to really research brain function and to figure out how to reduce stress. And because what I did learn early on was that stress is a trigger for a lot of mental health conditions. So even if you have bipolar disorder or you have schizophrenia, if you had schizophrenia, for example, it's usually a stressful moment or a stressful time in your life that triggers the first episode. And this is why, for example, people often get it around the first time that they enroll in college, etc. And so I really wanted to find a way to keep my career, because what I was beginning to realize is that if I was to stay on all those medications, it would have been very hard for me to write, to do a lot of the work that I was trying to do, to even do a lecture, because a lot of medications make you very sluggish. They make your brain very foggy. You can also seem a little high. I had side effects like hand trembling, which meant I had to get a stamp for my signature, and I decided to only use PowerPoint to teach that class because I literally could not write on the board. And so there were all these side effects that I was experiencing. And so as much as possible, I wanted to not have them because I was not going to go on disability. That was my goal, was not to have to experience that. Now, some people will experience that and you could do all you want and do not respond in the way that I found worked for me. And so out of that first experience became my first book. Now, I had no plans to write a book, even as an academic. I knew I was going to write articles, but my first book, Bipolar 101, was really about what I found for myself that worked. And my doctor actually encouraged me to write a book about what I had learned about brain function, especially as it related to ameliorating the both the impacts of medication as well as the impacts of the illness. And so Bipolar 101 became my first book. It was quite successful. I wrote another one called Preventing Bipolar Relapse, again, based on a lot of what I learned, and what I learned worked for me, and what the research said would work for people in general, just on the way our brain works. And what I also realized is that the way that we treat mental illness is very much a medical model, which says, you have a symptom, you take a pill, and that's how it works. And there's actually a new book out about nutrition and mental health, written by a doctor and nutritionist at Harvard. I'm trying to remember the name of the book right now, but it's escaping me. But I think it's called "This Is Your Brain on Food" or something like that. But what is happening now is that we're beginning to be more conscious of all the ways that our mind and body are connected. Of course they are. I tell people, if you take a pill, you actually swallow it, it goes in your stomach, and it impacts your brain. In the same way, food does the same thing. And so for me, learning what to eat, how to improve my sleep, because what also people don't realize is that sleep is both a trigger and symptom of mental health disorders. So if you don't get a lot of sleep, you're more likely to get depressed, you're more likely to have anxiety, as well as not being able to sleep is a symptom of anxiety and depression. So monitoring your sleep and taking care of that is also really, really important. And for me, somebody who is always going all the time, what I realized is that I needed to really enjoy time off. I needed to take time to have the relationships that I wanted to have with my friends, and that working all the time wasn't necessarily the best thing. And just a little, some of you might, you know, connect to this or it might resonate for you. I was a grad student at UC Berkeley doing my PhD. I was working as a research assistant at a huge firm in Silicon Valley. I was also teaching classes at San Francisco State, and I had a toddler. Now, it doesn't take much of a genius to realize that my body couldn't keep doing that for very long. And I strongly believe that that is what triggered my bipolar disorder was the demands that I was putting on myself. And we live in a culture where we are not encouraged to take breaks. Americans brag a lot about how much they work, and that is something that, you know, they say by um, October, we've worked as much as Europeans work for an entire year. And so we have a culture that rewards work. We have women who say things like, who brag about the fact that they, you know, worked up to day before they gave birth. And none of these things are healthy for us. And this is why we have, you know, poor maternal and child health outcomes in lots of different places. So what I want you to know is that stressing yourself out, and working really, really hard. Working hard is good, but working so hard that you don't have time to be happy, you don't have time to do the things that bring you joy. And you will start to feel the impacts. If you, when I was talking to my family practitioner recently, he shared with me that stress was the number one reason people came to the doctor. Sometimes not directly, but indirectly, whether it was for hypertension, whether it was for cardiovascular illnesses, mental illnesses, diabetes, obesity. These are all things that are highly related to stress. So I want to read a quote that I love, and it comes from Frankl, who experienced the Holocaust and wrote several books about going through difficult times. And what the quote says is, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So I want you to know that you might not be able to control the stress around you, but you really can control how you respond to it. And some of the stressful things that we're going through right now include the pandemic, right? It includes people who are staying home when they used to go to work. If you have children at home, you are now educating from home. Some of you might be socially isolated based on where you live. You might have fear about getting the illness. You might have experienced loss from family members who may have died of the illness, or people who went through illness but you couldn't visit them in the hospital. You might also be stressed out for lack of information. Also, to note that there's a lot of stress for people of color, and especially for Black people who have to watch a lot of trauma. And it's really, really important to take care of ourselves. People are feeling really triggered, and it feels like it's just never ending. There's just one shooting after another. There are protests, there are riots. There's a lot of racism that is blatant. People are trying to figure out, where do we go from here, whether it's, you know, taking down Confederate things, whatever it is. And we're also finding ourselves culturally in polar distances from each other. Whatever your beliefs are, there's a lot of disparity in how we perceive the world, and there's a lot of misunderstanding. People are getting blocked on social media. It's a very, very stressful time. And so what I want to start with here is, I want us to do a breathing exercise, because breathing is one of the ways that we can control how we react. We calm our bodies down, we clear our brain. So I want you to close your eyes, and what you're going to do is you're going to be breathing in through your nose for a count of 5. You're going to hold for a count of 3, and then you're going to blow out through your mouth for a count of 5. You're going to close your eyes to shut out all the stimuli. So I want you to do that. Close your eyes, breathe in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold for a count of 1, 2, 3. Breathe out for a count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that is one of the stress management techniques that you can use in the moment. You can also use it to start your day clear and calm and peaceful. You can also use it to end your day with clarity, with calm and peace that will help you fall asleep better. So a little bit about stress. Stress is an evolutionary response. It's a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding. Our bodies have evolved over time to have a response when danger strikes, right? So it is our hearts pumping faster because we have to move, the blood gets circulated, there's more oxygen to the brain, all our organs get involved in how do I get away from this danger or how do I face this danger? What happens is that that stress response, if the stress is chronic, which means that it doesn't go away, then we have really bad health outcomes. Because in a normal stress response, right? So you're driving down the street, kid runs in front of the car, you slam on the brake. You'll feel your heart start pumping really fast. You might be breathing shallow. You might have to even pull over on the side of the road. Well, in normal stress, between 60 and 90 minutes, it takes for your body to recover from that moment. It gets back calm, things re-regulate. If you're having constant stress, that doesn't happen. And the stress hormone cortisol builds up and creates all sorts of bad outcomes for the body. So some of the physical responses to stress I've talked about: breathing harder, breathing faster, you have a rapid heartbeat, strong contractions, you might have hypertension, so your blood pressure goes up, right? And sometimes you'll feel that lightheadedness. Gastrointestinal, you might have heartburn, diarrhea, ulcer, acid reflux, people get constipated. You might feel it in tension headaches. You might feel it here, muscle tension in your shoulders or in your back. Some people even grind their teeth and need a mouth guard because they're wearing their teeth down from the stress that they feel. You might even feel it in your reproductive system. Painful, shorter or longer periods for women, and both men and women might lose desire. Some behavioral outcomes: you might smoke or drink. You might eat more, eat less, or you might eat more junk food. You might find yourself sleeping a lot, or you might find yourself not being able to sleep at all and having insomnia. You might develop compulsive behaviors, or you might have poor self-care. You might also experience depression or anxiety. You might feel irritable or quick to anger. So here are some strategies for managing your stress. I talked about breath before. Here are some others. I want you to think about managing your media. So it turns out that human beings have a negativity bias. What that means is that we respond more to negative stimuli in more visceral ways. We also hold on to those memories more powerfully. And some research has shown that it takes 4 positive experiences to counteract a negative one. So if you think about all the bad news that is on the news all day and what it would take for you to counteract that. So you want to limit your sources, you want to limit the amount of time you expose yourself to the news. I also recommend that you listen to the news or read the news and not necessarily watch it, because you're often not in control of the images that come in front of you when you're watching the news. And especially if you're a person of color and you are African American, you don't want to watch police violence. You don't want to watch people getting killed in front of you. It's a very traumatic events that will impact your mental health, and you will be feeling the impacts of that. So what I do suggest to people sometimes is that after you watch the news, watch something light. I don't know, cat videos, puppy videos, watch your baby, talk to someone you love. Find a way to counteract the negative. Another strategy is to go outside. It's really important for you to get sunshine on your face. It helps regulate sleep, but it also puts you in a positive mood. This is why people go to sunny places on vacation. It also helps you sleep. So if you can go outside to read, to work on your laptop, to have a conversation with a friend, or just to take a break. You want to find a way to calm your mind. So a mindfulness practice is really important. If you have a faith practice, include that is a powerful way to counteract stress. So prayer is a mindfulness practice. Some people are doing all the coloring books that are also a strategy that people are using for mindfulness practice. You can do yoga, meditation. For some people, it's creativity. You might want to paint. Whatever it is, find a way to calm your mind. You want to include exercise in your day. The minimum amount of exercise doctors recommend are 30 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week, and whatever that is. If you want to skip, run, walk, do yoga, bar exercise, aerobic exercise, whatever it is, find something you love and that you want to do, and do that. And really make sure that you give your body a workout. We live really, really sedentary lifestyles. There's a joke now that says sitting is the new smoking because of the impact that a sedentary lifestyle has on your health. You also want to connect with your loved ones. This pandemic, as well as the social upheavals that we're having, there's also fire that's going on, as well as earthquakes. There's just so much going on in 2020 that you want to reach out to people that you love and care about them in what they are going through. It turns out people with good social support systems live longer. Loneliness actually kills us. So make sure that you are feeling loved and cared about. Develop a gratitude practice. Oprah Winfrey made this really popular. And the science shows that if you are grateful, if you stay positive, and you can find things that you're grateful for, it creates positive emotions. You have more hope. I will say that for me, this is one way that I don't have a lot of negative impacts from things that are going on around in the world, because I always focus on what is it that I'm grateful for? What is it that I have that makes me happy? How do I practice my own joy? How do I do things that make me feel good when things are going bad? And I always feel that things can always be worse. And I know for some people, they're like, well, that's relative and it doesn't necessarily work for me. But if you really think about how the fact that you're alive, the fact that you might not have had COVID-19, or you survived COVID-19, or you have people in your life who care about and who love you, and the small things that you achieve, whether through work or in the relationships that you have with people, and to show that gratitude to them as well, to say thank you to people, to praise the people. I also think that to help you control, at least to develop a sense of control, to feel more control, is to have a schedule. Now, I'm really bad with this one. I tend not to have very good routines, but schedules are really important for you to feel some control over your life, but for you also to get done what needs to be done. So if you're in school, you want to, schedule study time. For everybody, you should schedule when you eat. Whenever that is, you really want to start with breakfast if you can. You want to schedule your exercise, schedule your sleep. If you're scheduling Zoom meetings, you want to schedule your sleep. You also want to take a break in between your various activities. You should not be sitting in front of a laptop for hours at a time. It's not good for your concentration. It's not good for your eyes. It's just not a good practice. Your body needs to move. Your brain needs a break. So remember to build in breaks of 5 to 10 minutes, say, in between meetings. And so I want you to think about what you will do to manage your stress. Now, a little bit about emotional resilience. Emotional resilience is actively and creatively adapting to stressful situations and crises. And what emotional resilience does is it helps you bounce back from things that happen to you, whether it's somebody who's dying, you have a chronic illness, somebody in your life has a chronic illness, you get laid off from a job, whatever it is, emotional resilience helps you to see the positivity. I know for myself, I got laid off 3 weeks ago, and my friends are all saying that I'm responding well, but I think of it as an opportunity to do something different, or I could be to do the same thing, but it gives me a break. And I am able to think about, first, it's not something that I can control. So if you let go of those things that you can't control, you'll have a lot more peace in your life. Take control of the things you can. I can't control looking for a job. I can't control getting a job. And so every day you work towards that goal, but also give yourself grace in terms of, um, sorry, sorry. So the power of sleep. I want you to think about sleep as the ultimate energy drink. So it impacts your brain function, your moods, and your health. There's some ways to get good sleep. Prepare your space. You want your room to be dark. It triggers melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. You want it to be cool. You sleep better when the temperature is lower. Calm, whatever that is for you, if you like white noise or you like music or you like it quiet and comfortable. You also want to make sure that you get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. And I know people always brag, I only need 6. All I say is the science says that if you're great on 6, you're probably much better on 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So my thing is 7 is heaven, 8 is great, 9 is divine. Some things that interrupt your sleep are things like coffee and cigarettes. They are stimulants. So if you do have a hard time falling asleep, you don't want to use those things near bedtime. Alcohol might help you get to sleep, but it's really bad for sleep. You want to eat right. So the more nutrition dense foods that you eat, the better it is for your brain and your mental health and well-being. Again, you want to make sure that you get 5 a day. Some of the hacks around that is if you have brighter colors in your food, you're more likely to have nutrition dense foods. The more colors you have on the plate, the more nutrition you're getting. Green the grub, I say, which is put green on your plate at all meals. And you get your 5 a day and finish with fruit. Another activity is also a way to build emotional resilience. And just so you know, some of the benefits of activity for brain function: enhanced creativity, improved concentration, and faster learning. So you want to really make sure that you get some activity in. Also helps build your immune system, which we all really need right now. So does sleep, by the way. So if you don't have a lot of sleep, you will lower your immune response and make you more susceptible. Some activity hacks: you want to do something you love, you want to make it routine, you want to try and integrate it into your day. So you might want to have meetings, etc., where you walk and talk. And again, you want to stay connected to people. Social support systems actually help people with cancer, with all sorts of diseases. It actually helps you get healthier faster. So it's a really good way to build resilience. So I want you to think about what you will do to build your emotional resilience. And I want to thank you for giving me this time to share with you my own story, as well as strategies for stress management, as well as building emotional resilience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. White. That was incredible. And it's so important to talk about those physical reactions to mental health struggles. So how you're feeling in your stomach and your brain. Those things relate. And many people who have been in this COVID-19 crisis, who have been isolated, who may be feeling, who may be struggling for the first time, that can tell them that maybe it's time to reach out for help, that, you know, if they're having those stomach aches or the other problems that Dr. White was talking about, it can be a good sign that maybe it's time to get help. And then all of those tips about what you can do to combat that. Sleep, I know that so many of us have been sacrificing sleep during this time, but it is so crucially important. I know I definitely could benefit from more myself. So thank you again, Dr. White. I would like to introduce our next speaker now, Jeanette Munga. And before we do this, please, just one reminder, if you are participating in the Q&As and you have questions, make sure you put your questions in the Q&A tab and not the chat tab, so that way we are able to get through all of them. We are halfway through the morning so far. It has flown right by, and we're really excited to end the morning with Jeanette. She's a 19-year-old college student. She's one of 3 co-founders of I Am More, and she's going to talk about her story from shame to empowerment and how we can all learn everyday resilience.
When the world unravels before you, when your dreams are crumbling stones, when everything you dare to touch sets on fire, and all around you is ash and smoke. Remember this. Rock bottom is a perfect place for rebuilding. Remember that you are your mother's daughter. Your grandmother's answered prayers. A whole bloodline of women who bend in response to the raging winds. There is nothing broken here. Nothing damaged or discarded. Each scar is a badge of honor. Every misstep, a victory dance waiting to happen. You are women becoming, learning the complicated language of forgiveness, the intricate lessons of the universe, and your heart is just a muscle. It needs exercise. And you were born for this sort of heavy lifting. You were born one part saint, one part warrior woman. Loving yourself without shame is the most important thing you will ever have to fight for.
My name is Jeanette Amisi Munga. I was born as Tosha Kitungano on February 19th of 2001. I was born in Tanzania, Nyarugusu, one of the largest refugee camps in East Africa. My family left the Democratic Republic of Congo before I was born, and they found refuge in Tanzania. They left because of the war and the violence and the death around them. The life in Tanzania wasn't an easy life. We didn't have the basic human needs such as food and medication and water. I never had the opportunity to go to school because my family never had enough money to send me to school. And so as a young child, I spent my time helping my family. I learned early my womanly duties, such as cleaning our home, washing dishes, and cooking. I also learned how to care for children, and I spent a lot of my time with my grandmother. We would walk a great distance to the farm. And so farming was our only way of eating regularly. My mother raised me and my younger brother as a single mother, and she didn't have money, but she made anything and everything possible for us to eat. And so I remember I was with her. She started a sewing business, so she would sew and she would sell clothing. I was with her when she would bake things, and I would go with her to the market, and we would sell things just to have money to eat. I often questioned myself, why did my father leave? Was I not good enough? Were we not good enough? He left without saying goodbye, and I've never had the opportunity to understand why he left. I also grew up with a lot of challenges, such as witchcraft, and witchcraft is not common in the US, but it's very common in Africa. And so I am very surprised that I'm still alive today. Honestly, I don't know why, how I am still alive, but I am, and I'm grateful because I understand that reason why I am still alive is because my life has purpose. We came in the US and life changed for us. We came and we had the opportunity to education, to clean water, to food, and that was a guaranteed for us. And so life changed. They became so much better because I don't know, the life here and there is very, very different. And so me being here, I feel like I'm the richest person, honestly, yes. And so I was a very bright student when I started school. A few years ago, 2 years ago, I graduated high school. I graduated with multiple academic scholarships. At that time, I thought I had it together. I thought I had it all together, honestly. But little did I know, within the course of 10 months, my life changed completely, completely. All the things that I thought could never ever happen to me happened to me. It's just the thought of, I thought I've experienced enough, but no. Within the course of 10 months, I went from being a scholar to a F student, to a sexual assault survivor, to a rape victim, and to a mourning mother of 2 twins. I never thought any of those things can happen, but it did. And so I was left questioning, mourning, and blaming myself. Everything is just very recent. And so I never understood how to process it all. One thing that I've begun to understand over the course of a few months is that my trouble, my pain, it has purpose. I have understood that my pain has significant purpose. I just had to realize that there is a story behind everything and that there is purpose behind everything. One thing that I want you to understand while you are listening to me is that your pain has purpose. And what you have to do is use your pain. One of my favorite lines from the poem is that rock bottom is a perfect place for rebuilding. I've been there. I've been at rock bottom, and I know how it feels like. I know how it feels like to be hurt, to feel guilty for something that you had no control over, to feel depressed, to feel helpless, to feel hopeless, to feel powerless. I know what it's like. I've been there. That's rock bottom. When you have nothing else to lose. I want you to understand that your pain has purpose and that you have purpose. Another thing that I understood is that I can always restart. I can always hit the restart button. I have understood that when you're at the lowest point of your life, you can always get back up. And you can always tell yourself that you deserve a second chance, because you do. As long as you have the breath of life, you deserve all the chances in the world. But I realized that I had to give myself that chance. I had to give myself the grace to tell myself that I deserve all good things in this life. One thing that I also realized is that we need to unleash our superpower. We need to realize how amazing, how awesome, and how powerful we are. when we begin to live like we have purpose, everything in our lives change. Everything from people, places, and things, everything changes. I'm always amazed at the people that I interact with. A few months ago, I was talking to a friend and we were discussing about career aspirations. And it was just very interesting how she always compared herself and she never saw what I saw in her. I asked her a question, like, what do you want to be and what do you want to do? And, she said this and this and that, but she just had so much doubt in herself. And I remember at that moment, I just had an epiphany. I understood that we have these blind spots for ourselves. Let me give you an example. If you compliment your friend and you tell the friend, you're really good at this particular thing, the first response that they're going to give you is me. No. They're going to deny it, even though you're acknowledging and praising them for what they're good at. It's always interesting how we don't see it. We don't see ourselves like how other people see us. We create these blind spots to block off the fact that we are talented and that we are unique and that we have so much gifts and skills to offer to the world. And so I learned how to change my perspective. I learned to give myself compliments before anyone else gives me a compliment. To believe in the compliments that I give myself, that I am talented and that I have a lot of skills and that I am uniquely made and that I have so much to offer to this world, so much to offer to my community. When I understood that, I just look at other people and I'm like, no, you have to change how you think about yourself. And so some of the things that I've heard from my peers and from my own internal dialogues are phrases like, I don't think I can do it. I don't believe in myself. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm scared. I don't know how to. I don't think I'm powerful. I'm weak. I'm not special. I'm afraid that I am powerful. And I'm afraid to use my power. I want you to know that let us remove the negative self-defeating beliefs that we have and the thoughts that we have about ourselves. Let us begin to shift the negative self-talk into positive self-talk. I want to invite you to close your eyes for a minute. Tune in to all the ways that you judge yourself. All the ways that you don't feel confident. Either you do it to yourself or someone does it to you. Think of all the ways that you feel powerless, that you feel defeated, and that you don't have confidence in yourself. Think of all the ways that you or someone else takes power away from you, or you take power from someone else. And I want to ask you, do you judge yourself? Do you put yourself down? Do you criticize yourself? Do you compare yourself to others? I want you to take a minute and to think and to reflect and put yourself in that place. Allow the emotions to come up. Allow the thoughts to come up. Be there for a second. I would like to share some affirmations with you. As you're closing your eyes, I want to share this with you. Even though I don't believe in my power and in my greatness, I completely love and I accept how I feel. Even though I discredit my gifts and my talents, I completely love and I accept who I am. Even though I put myself down and I hold myself back from my personal power, I completely love and I accept who I am. Even though I am absolutely terrified of my power and of my light, I completely love and I accept how I feel. Even though I am scared to unleash my power, to unleash my confidence, I completely love and I accept how I feel. You can open up your eyes now. Let's take a deep breath. I know a few people, including myself, that might be a little scared to grow into our own individual power. So what we do is we hold back and we defeat ourselves and we judge ourselves. Oftentimes, we're afraid of our confidence and our power. So we keep away and we create these blind spots. The blind spots that I mentioned earlier, we create these blind spots so that we don't see how powerful and how awesome we are. We don't believe in ourselves, so we're afraid. We are so afraid to disappoint other people. We're so afraid to fail, to make mistakes, because we know that when we fail, that we'll get bad, negative feedback. We're afraid that we'll be judged and criticized if we stand in our power and in our light. We feel afraid to push ourselves. So what we do is we push ourselves down because we're afraid of making mistakes and we're afraid of making other people angry, jealous, or sad. We just don't think that we're strong enough. We don't think that we're smart enough. We don't think that we're intuitive enough. So we say to ourselves that other people are better than us and that we can never be as awesome. And so what we do is we compare ourselves to them because we don't see our own gifts and our own talents and our own skills. We don't want to stand out and stand up in our power because we'll be criticized and ridiculed. So we create these blind spots again. And so we hide away and stay in the background because we believe that's safer. I really want to tell you, and I want you to understand that your power is really all about feeling good in your life and sharing the light with other people. When you hide and you push away yourselves in the background, you are doing yourself a disservice and you are doing other people a disservice. But the more we confidently walk into our light, we allow other people to understand that it's safe to walk in our light and to confidently be ourselves. And one thing that I have understood is that when we are just who we are and we come as who we are not only allowing other people to see us as who we are and to give them that motivation to be who they are, but we create this wonderful effect in our communities and in the world. If you're playing small and hiding and not stepping into your power and your light, then you don't really share the beautiful parts about yourself. You don't really get to allow other people to admire how beautiful you are just as how you come. And so I want us to embrace ourselves and to embrace each other. Because when we just come as we are in our lives and in other people's lives, we are giving the people to and the people, our community, and understanding that we are okay with ourselves and we accept ourselves. And that way we are teaching other people how to treat us in that manner. I really want to leave you with a few affirmations. Some of the affirmations that I've told myself that has helped me learn to appreciate myself, to process my trauma, and to understand that I can restart is I want you to forgive yourself. Forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness has been a big thing for me. Throughout every journey of my life, I've learned to forgive myself. Forgive myself. Forgiveness is a gift to yourself. It doesn't mean that you forget, but it actually means that we are willing to release the emotional grief, and we are willing to walk into this new chapter of our lives and just live and just be. We don't want to dwell in the past. We want to look ahead in the future. And that's what I've been doing. I have been forgiving myself every day, and I've been giving myself the permission to let go of the things that don't do me any good, to focus on the kind of person that I want to be. That's what I've been doing. And that has helped me because I forgive other people, but I also forgive myself too. And so I want you to repeat after this affirmation. I am willing to forgive myself and to forgive others. I'm going to say it again. I am willing to forgive myself and to forgive others. Another affirmation that I want to leave you with is I am willing to change. You have to be willing to change. That's something that has helped me. I have been willing to change. Not only am I willing to not dwell in the past, but I'm willing to pick up the lessons that are going to help me and to move on and to create a new life for myself. And that I don't know what's going on in your life, but I want you to understand that you can live a good life, a beautiful life, when you forgive yourself, when you're willing to change. Your life is a mirror of our other lives. If you feel anxious, if you feel depressed, if you feel broke, if you're feeling like you are helpless, I understood that that is just a belief system that's within. And when we begin to understand that we are powerful beings, we are willing to understand that we can take a different route. So for so long, I felt like I was helpless. I felt like I was powerless. And so the moment that I changed my perspective, everything in my life changed also. The kind of opportunities that come to me changed too. And so you have to be willing to be open. And I want to leave you with another affirmation. I have the ability to change my mind, to change my thoughts, and change my belief systems that no longer work for me, and therefore change my life. And my power to make change is always within me. I'm going to say it again. I have the ability to change my mind, to change my thoughts, and to change my belief systems that no longer work for me, and therefore change my life. I have the ability to make change, and that change is within me. Lastly, I want to leave you with another affirmation. I believe in possibility. We are the creators of our lives, and we create the kind of reality that we want to live. When you say yes to life, life says yes to you. When you say yes to life, life says yes to you. I want to leave you with another affirmation. This is the last affirmation. I am loved and I am safe. Out of any situation, only good will come. I'm going to say it again. I am loved and I am safe. In any situation, only good will come. Thank you so much for listening. That's all that I have. I hope that you can realize that you have the power within you to change your present time and create the life that you want. Learn to forgive yourself and learn to say yes to life, because life will say yes to you.
The positive comments are just flowing in for Jeanette. Thank you so much. You are captivating to watch, and your production at the beginning was so powerful. Thank you for all of that and for all of those affirmations. We're shortly going to be able to hear from Jeanette and Dr. White live. We're going to be doing our talking circles, but before then, I want to extend our sincerest gratitude for all of you who have been able to donate so far. We thank you. That allows us to continue to do this life-saving work that we do. If you have not been able to donate and you have been moved by what we've done so far, please take the time to donate. We set the link for donations in that chat box. Or you can go to myasha.org/grit and grace and donate there as well. So thank you to everyone who has donated, and thank you to all who will donate over the next few hours. I'm also extremely grateful for all of the conversations that are happening right now. We have the chat box that is going off, thanking all of our speakers, and then so many questions are piling in for Jeanette and Dr. White. So let's get right to both of them live for this talking circle. They're going to be joined by Sandra Wilson. She is the Chief Equity, Diversion, and Inclusion Officer for Cascadia Behavioral Healthcare. I do want to remind you that these talking circles, they are based on equity. They're supposed to be between participants, and it is a balance of power. No one has power over the other person. So please feel free to keep continuing to submit those questions. Let's begin the talking circle.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here coming from Portland, Oregon this morning. Welcome to our talking circle. So we'll get right on our questions. Dr. White, this one is for you.
Okay.
It's from Kelly, and Kelly says, I cannot sleep. I get up to pee 4 to 6 times a night. I don't drink caffeine, take drugs, or smoke. I have been to urologists. I have had a sleep study, and they haven't found anything. I sleep in a cool, dark room. I take melatonin. I also exercise 3 to 4 times a week. My doctors are baffled. Any suggestions?
Oh, that's a tough one. I know the reason that I end up peeing at night is because sometimes I tend to not drink during the day, and I drink a lot of my fluids later in the evening. And so then what happens is that I'm thirsty at night because I didn't drink all day. And then I get into this weird cycle of drinking before I go to bed and having to wake up to go to pee. And then when I go to pee, I drink some more because I'm thirsty. So it's really hard for me to say, you say doctors are baffled. So, I'm not going to be like the super expert here, but given that they haven't found a biological reason, that might be what has happened. And like I said, that has happened for me, that I get into this weird cycle. And my kid will tell me, she'll be like, I don't think you drink enough today. Like, I haven't seen you drinking. And then what happens around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I start drinking too much. I know that I'm doing it, but at that point, I'm just thirsty. And so we get into this weird cycle. So maybe if you can drink less fluids at night, like right before you go to bed, maybe give yourself an hour and then go to bed, you won't necessarily be thirsty. It'll just be changing the pattern of your sleep, and maybe that can help. I don't know of any herbal ways to control that, so I'm not sure what other advice to give. But that, like I say, that's happened to me, especially in Jamaica, where it's really hot, and then I just get into this weird cycle of drinking water and then having to get up to pee all night. So.
Thank you for that. Jeanette, I'm going to direct the next question to you.
All right.
You spoke so eloquently about starting from rock bottom. People often underestimate just how courageous and resilient they can be. What advice would you offer to those people who just have difficulty finding that strength?
Speaking from a personal perspective, I have gone through so much pain that I realize that I continue to give the people who hurt me power when I don't forgive and when I don't forgive myself. And so it was a very hard journey for me to actually pick myself up and to move on, because I was not moving on, really. I was still giving people power over me, over my life, when really they hurt me, yes, but they've moved on with their lives. They're having a good time, but I'm here crying about things that happened a few years ago. I continue to hurt myself when I don't forgive them and when I don't forgive myself. And so the journey really begins when you start to forgive yourself and you start to forgive them. Because I did this thing where I would say I forgive you with my mouth, but my heart was saying otherwise. And so because my heart was saying otherwise, that really shows that I really haven't forgiven them, and I haven't forgiven myself also. And so the journey does begin when you say, I'm forgiving you and I'm letting go of this pain, of this hurt. I'm no longer going to carry it with me because it doesn't do me any good. And so I'm going to push that in the past and I'm going to look forward. I'm going to continue to live my life because your life is worthy. And I realized that the journey of picking yourself up from rock bottom really does begin when you start to forgive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This one is for both of you. And I would ask Ruth, if you would answer this question first.
Okay.
You know, in the face of adversity and setbacks, how do you keep sight of what is actually important and move toward resilience?
That's a very good question. For me, it's, my friends often say that it's really not that simple, and I say everyone is different, but for me, I always think about if I was dying tomorrow, what would I have wished that I had done that day, right? So there's certain things to me, like I'm picky about my sink in my bathroom, and I don't like dishes in the sink, right? And in the kitchen. But is that going to be my priority for that day, right? Like, if my house isn't perfect, or if I take one more day to answer an email? So we live in a society where we've been taught that somehow, any contact with us requires us to respond right away. And it doesn't. I tell people literally this thing has an off button. Like, it has a do not disturb. Actually, what often happens to me is I do things like this. I put it on do not disturb and I forget about it all day, right? Because I forget to take it off do not disturb. But we have this sense that everything's an emergency. And I joke with my students that I'm not a cardiac surgeon. And so nobody's going to die if I don't respond to something the next day. So I focus on the things that, one, will bring me joy. So, and there are times that if I'm just tired, I just literally check out. And it might, for some people, they will say, we emailed you yesterday, but you start to realize that so I used to go off the grid a lot. I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to go hiking in the Olympic Mountains or in the Cascades. You know what? When I'm hiking, there's no cell service. So I really can't if I want to. I go sailing, and it used to be the same thing. I had no cell service out on the Pacific in the bay. So I think there's a way to start to think about that you come first, right? That if you're not taken care of, you can't do the other things. So if you're running on empty, you need to fill up the tank, right? Because you would never drive a car on empty. And if you don't maintain a car, it's going to break down. And our bodies are the same, because that's how I know I ended up in the hospital. And when I took a totally different attitude towards life, where I said, you know what, I could write another book, I could write another paper, but do I really need to do that right now? Or can I just take a break? It's the same thing with deciding, are you going to skip a meal? Well, if you skip a meal, how's that going to make you, like, are you going to have mental clarity? Are you going to have the energy that you need? And so really focus on, at some point in your life, and I think as we get older, we get better at this, is to figure out what your values are. Know what's important to you. And it doesn't have to be the same as what's important to someone else. For me, I literally have to get outside every couple of days. And the air has been horrible in the Bay Area. It's been super bad. But staying in a house with no air condition, closing the windows, closing the doors, day 2, I was starting to be like, okay, we've been locked in the house with Corona, but at least I could go outside. So yes, I went outside, might have not been the best, but for me, mental health wise, I need to get outside. So you're my roommate, we're both in public health. She's like, you really want to breathe that air? I said, that's better for me than staying inside. So we all need to know what our priorities are, contacting family members, or, your yoga practice, as we saw earlier, a faith practice, right? If that's important to you. So I think we have to take time in our lives to really know what's important for us and what our values are, so that when we end up in those moments where we have to choose in terms of resilience, and again, with resilience, Sleep, 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 sleep. I mean, there are so many people don't realize that more accidents are caused by people with lack of sleep than alcohol. And so that's a restorative practice. And whatever you can do to improve your sleep will really improve your mood. I tell people we're really just like the 2-year-old toddler. We're just grown-ups. That's all it is. We have the same reaction to not having sleep where we're like cranky and, your brain can't work. So really focus on what it is that you need in that moment, but also it really depends on who you are and what you need for you. So take that time for yourself to know what that is, so that in those moments of crisis you can find the things that give you peace and joy, focus on those things, and let some of the other stuff go.
And Jeanette, the same question for you. In the face of adversity and setbacks, how do you keep sight of what is actually important and move toward resilience?
Wow, Ruth really said a lot of things that I'm just learning also. Being an older sibling and having a lot of responsibilities and always trying to be perfect and never disappointing people. I have never really understood what I liked. I have never took the time to discover what makes me happy, things that I can do on my free time. I've never really discovered that until just now. I'm like now starting to do some self-care, starting to learn the things that I enjoy doing, things that I'm really good at, things that I spend most of my time with. Like I never really had the opportunity to do that. And I think that's the most important thing, because we can take care of other people, but what about us? What about your happiness? What about your joy? If you die tomorrow, will you say that you lived a good life? Because yes, it's important to look after your family and the things, your work, your responsibilities. Good to do that, but if you die, they can replace you at your work. If you die, they can just give you a replacement. And so I realized that I need to focus more on things that I enjoy doing, things that make me happy, things that I'm good at. And so I'm now just starting to discover that, and the advice that I can give to anyone is just really take the time that you need to learn yourself, discover who you are, discover what you like, discover what you're good at, discover the things that you enjoy doing, things that spark your life. That's what I can say. That's what I'm doing. And I'm not an expert at this, but I can say that I'm trying, and that's all that counts.
Absolutely. This next question comes from Phoebe, and Phoebe asks or says, I'm my daughter's caretaker. She's 21, and I'm constantly working on myself. I suffer with mental health issues myself, and sometimes I feel so lost when trying to help her. Any suggestions?
Okay. So as a social worker, I'm going to come from that perspective. And what I would say is that, again, try to carve out a 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a time where it's just about you. And it can be something, right now there's this whole crave around, these coloring books, where it's just a distraction, where maybe she's busy doing something and you take that 20 minutes to just zone out, to find a place of zen where you can, maybe if you're knitting or you crochet or you do, scrapbooking. I know people don't put together scrapbooks anymore because they have stuff on their phone, but do whatever it is to get those, pictures off the phone and into an album, or maybe paint, whatever it is. If you can find something that brings you joy for a few moments every day, then that's an amazing thing. I also would suggest that you both together find something to do that brings you both joy. So you might be taking care of her, but is it possible, and I don't know the situation, but is it possible for you to find a mindfulness practice that you both can do together, a breath exercise that you can both do together, so that you both benefit from an opportunity to find peace during the day? But I do believe that you have to find something restorative, something that gives you peace and joy, so that, like I always tell people, you can't be on empty all the time, right? If you're pouring into somebody else, you have to have something to pour. And so if you're on empty, it's really hard for you to give. But just because you're a caregiver all the time doesn't mean that you can't find some joy in the day for yourself. And that's what I would say to you. And I tell people, you can start with 5 minutes, and then you go to 10, and then you go to 15. You can structure your day in a way that gives you that moment. Maybe you wake up 10 minutes earlier to find a way to meditate or to do something mindful that calms you down and centers you during the day.
Jeanette, do you have any thoughts about that?
I mean, I don't have any experience with that, but I can say that you really do need to care for yourself before you care for other people. You have an important role, and it takes a lot out of you, but you always have to remember yourself too. And I think that Ruth said that discovering things that you both enjoy, that way you are also getting a lot of it too. So I can just say, don't forget about yourself as you're taking care of other people.
Beautiful. This next question comes from Sandra. And Sandra says, when the pain of hundreds of years of violence against Black people has not been acknowledged and continues, how do we move forward personally when the preponderance of evidence tells me my life doesn't matter?
Ooh.
That's heavy.
That's heavy. And I want to say, you know, part of the struggle is to not think about what other people think about your life. To think about your life and how you value your life. I will say that one of the gifts my dad gave us, my dad, I was born in England of Jamaican immigrant parents, and my mom moved to Canada following her sisters who were nurses, because nurses were being recruited. So first they, you know, they held up the NHS in the UK, and then they went to Canada. And my dad decided that he didn't want his kids raised in a white majority. So he packed us up. My mom was like, where are you going with the kids? And we went back to Jamaica, and she stayed to get her residency in Canada. And growing up in a Black majority, I never centered white people. So my life's value had nothing to do with white people. What I do had nothing to do with white people. What I thought had nothing to do with white people. And I can't give that gift to somebody who was never raised in a Black majority where everybody looked like them, teachers, your friends, the prime minister, the leader of the country, everybody looked like you. You were athletes, whatever you did, it was around. You never really thought about white people. Like for me, white people were tourists. Like, yeah, we had native white people, but they didn't have, you know, more power over us, and they weren't running the world. And so all I can say is to start to think about why you think your life doesn't matter, because somebody else's perception and the violence that is supported societally by some sectors in our society is not the way we want to, that's not the point of reference we want to use about whether we have value or not. I tell people the same thing about a partner, right? If a partner leaves you, it doesn't mean you don't have value. If your parents reject you, it doesn't mean you don't have value. And I think it's really important for you to focus on the fact that we all have value. And we all, you know what my dad said to me, and it's a gift also that he gave me that I try to share with people. He said, you're as good as any and better than many. And he raised me that way. And he said, nobody's better than, he's like, the queen goes to the bathroom, okay? So she's queen only by virtue of birth. There's nothing that is special about her. There's nothing that's, you know, uniquely makes her more powerful, makes her more ready to rule, I don't know how many countries in the Commonwealth, right? And so we have to have intrinsic value of our own lives. I also would highly suggest to stay off the media visuals so that you're not traumatizing yourself all the time. There's some things I'm lucky, I don't have a TV, so I don't watch TV news, right? What I do is I get the Washington Post and New York Times in my inbox. So I see the headlines. They're not gonna have the videos. I'm not gonna look at the pictures. If it says somebody got killed, I will just say, okay, but I'm not gonna look at it because it's hard to get those things out of you. Once they've come into you, you're going to have nightmares. You're going to think about it all the time. It's hard not to, right? And this is why, and there, you know, I mentioned in my talk that humans have a negativity bias. And what that means is that we have to have, on average, the research has shown around 4 positive events to cancel out a negative one. So how are we going to counteract that negative experience. And news is not about good news, right? There's no news reports that's full of good news. In fact, they call it the human interest story because that's the good news, right? So you have to find a way to fill up on yourself, to find ways to celebrate Black joy. One of the things they have in Oakland, which I just think is so Oaklandish, is a Black joy parade. Literally a parade for Black people to just be joyful in the streets. And I believe when I do racial healing workshops, I believe in finding ways to celebrate that which is joyful for you. Is it jazz? Is it soul food? Is it our history? Is it books that people wrote? Is it visual? Is it art? Is it sculpture? Find a way to celebrate the power of who we are. Every culture has art and music and gifts for the world. And so there's nobody is less valued. You are valued and you have value, and you should value yourself regardless, and in spite of what other people might think of you. And I think it's why sometimes when people tell me, you know, maybe something I saw or experienced was racist, I give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Like, that's where I start. I give grace to people. I give patience to people, because what I also know is most people aren't thinking about me. They are just having, these white people are having just as many problems as I do. They're not thinking about me. And in Jamaica, we often say, it's kind of a joke, but it is a little raunchy, but we say, just because you didn't get any last night doesn't mean you should take it out on me, which basically it's because we're all Black. So there, it's not about a white person didn't serve me. It's like, well, maybe this person is just having a hard day. And so for me, giving grace has also mean that I don't then always question, is that something, why did that person say that? Why did that person do that? And is it because I'm not valued or they didn't see me? Because I think it was, what's her name that wrote, there's Dan Eins, We're Watching God, Zora Neale Hurston, who made that, who had that saying that said, you know, that she wonders why people wouldn't want her in their company because she's such an amazing person. I can't remember exactly how the quote goes, but something similar. I'll find it and put it in the chat box. But it really said to her, it really talked about her own value, her own intrinsic value, that she felt that everyone should want to be around her because she's so amazing. And so that's, I think, what you have to give yourself as a gift, is to not use other people as a point of reference for your value.
Thank you. This next question is for Jeanette. Jeanette, how did you make that shift from not being able to forgive to forgiving? Practically, how do you start to let go of the hurt and anger?
Well, for me, I am now just starting to talk about the things that I've experienced. I've internalized it whenever I experience. I never talked about it. I never mentioned it. I tried to forget it. But the thing is, the things that the sexual assaults, the rape, the abortion, all these things, they don't just go away. They don't just go away. They're in you. They're in your body. And so I never actually spoke about it until just recently. Until now, I'm actually just starting to celebrate it, because I didn't die. I am here. And so I can use that to motivate other people. But I internalized, and I told myself that it's just going to go away. Let me forget about it, you know? But the truth is, you have to talk about it. You have to admit that it happened so that you can start your healing process. And you have to forgive yourself. And it's not an easy journey. It isn't. It really isn't. There are days where I just wake up and I just feel so tired. My body is tired. My mind is tired. My soul is tired. And I just cry. And I feel like I'm right back to where I was, you know? But the journey really begins when you start loving yourself. Because I blamed myself for everything, even though I had no control over anything. I didn't choose for any of those things to happen. It happened. And I made the decision that I had to make in that moment for my sake. And so now I have to acknowledge that I made the right decision, and I have to comfort myself. And it isn't an easy journey picking yourself up. It really isn't. But, you know, just understanding that you are more than anything. You're so worthy. You're so worthy. I'm so worthy. And I tell myself these things to remind myself of who I am. And a thing is, my heart is, I have a lot of scars on my heart, but I shouldn't allow my heart to be broken. And the scars that I have in my heart, they're just on badges. In the poem, I said your scars are a badge of honor, so wear it with pride. You know, I don't allow those things to tank me down, although sometimes I do feel defeated, but really I am not. It's just a state of mind, and my mind takes me there, but I have to remind myself that I have honor. I have so much pride in myself, and I'm so proud of how far I have come and how far I'm gonna go, and that I am a testimony. You just really have to, it's a self journey. This is a self-love journey. It's a battle you have to fight every day. You have to fight every day and remind yourself and tell yourself that you are worthy, that you're worth more than anything in this life. And so other people can do that for you, but if you don't do it yourself, it doesn't do you any good. You have to do it yourself. It's a battle that you have to fight every day, every day. And I can't tell you how you express it, but it comes naturally to everyone. Others do it through writing, others do it through singing, dancing, whatever your creativity is. You use that to express yourself, to let go and to release the hurt, the pain, and forgive people. The best advice my mom gave me was to forgive myself. That was the best advice she gave me. She told me I have to, every day, it's a prayer, it's a song your heart sings every day. You have to forgive yourself every day, every second of the day. Love myself and I forgive myself. I love myself and I forgive myself. I let go of everything, all the shame, all the pain. I let it go and I love myself in this moment and I accept myself. It's a song you sing every single day, every moment of your life. That's the best advice I can give you.
It's amazing advice. And in fact, we have a question. One of our attendees is wondering if you have shared those affirmations somewhere, or if they are written somewhere that they can look them up, or how would you direct someone who is trying to locate the affirmations that you were talking about today?
I have never actually shared them, but now I'm realizing how powerful they are. There's just information that I have them in my journal and I read them and I write them and I repeatedly say it so that my mind I can meditate on it. It's a prayer, but I never actually publicly shared it, but I think I should because this is helpful. It's things that a lot of people need to just read and just remind themselves and to pick themselves up a little. And I think I'll share it. I will. Yeah.
Well, I know a number of folks will be looking forward to that.
Mm.
Absolutely. So one question with regards to the effects of the pandemic on mental health. With the COVID pandemic, the presence of that pandemic has certainly underscored the ways our nation's history of racism, bias, and discrimination are embedded in our health, social, and economic systems. You know, how can a community go about setting another course toward anti-racist and equitable outcomes?
So here's the thing, and I've been working on diversity issues for more than 30 years, and it started out with police shooting in Montreal back in 1988 when I was a grad student. Actually, I was an undergrad student, and I was doing an internship with Black Community Center in Côte-des-Neiges neighborhood in Montreal. And so after spending a lot of time, I mean, my first work was with a police department trying to build community police relations. And I have to say that, you know, when the word community, what does that mean? And part of what I work towards is that we all feel part of the human community, because there's some very fascinating studies that have been done on empathy. And it turns out that when we're very empathic to our own in-group, we tend to not feel as much for other people. And I think what we're missing right now in our culture is empathy, to understand where somebody else comes from. And it doesn't mean that you support their opinion. It doesn't mean that you agree with them. You might think that what they have to say is just out of here, but then how do you take some time to understand where did that perspective come from? Why did that happen? And I'm not saying that this is what people of color should do to understand white people. I'm not suggesting that. But what I am suggesting is that we have a more powerful sense of we instead of us and them. And I say that, what is it in the Bible? I'm not a religious person, but, how we treat the least of us is how we judge ourselves as a society. And so I think that inclusiveness in terms of power struggles, right? So if you think about people of color and people who are queer, people who are indigenous, that we all have the same struggles. And so the struggle to make Black Lives Matter is the same struggle to make Indigenous lives matter. It's the same struggle to make gay lives matter. Why? Because once we start thinking about my little corner of the world, we forget to think about, wait, we're all part of this same oppressive system. And so I think understanding where we're all coming from and that we all have different experiences just by virtue of our birth. My experience as a dark-skinned Black woman is going to be different from somebody who looks very white, because like I have a great niece, she could walk down the street, nobody would ever think she's a quarter Black. She's blonde, she's got green eyes, nobody knows where she got them from, but that's what she looks like. And so her experience is going to be very different from mine. But at the same time, we have a collective experience because she lives in a house full of Black people. And so understanding that if we can think about, again, focus on strengths, and I know it's a very social work thing to be strengths focused, but it is just who I am. I think I've always been just a positive person, which is kind of interesting because people think I'm also cynical, but I'm cynical in some ways, but in terms of who we are as people. And again, it's going to sound very California hippy dippy, but I believe that love always wins, and that if love can't beat hate, then what's love for? So I do believe that if we love ourselves, as Jeanette was talking about, and in turn love each other and treat each other in a loving way and go through the world in a loving way. I remember I used to work as a teller, and I remember times when, customers would come up and literally say, like, you should go back to where you come from. And I would tell them, thank you. And I would just say next, very politely, very kindly. I'm not saying go, whatever, but I just wouldn't put a lot of negative stuff in my space. And again, Jeanette was very good at sharing the way to think positively and all of that. I think if we come from a loving space, if we think about how am I going to love today, both myself and the people around me, am I going to smile? I'm going to say, I'm one of those crazy people. I walk a lot around Lake Merritt, which is this huge lake in Oakland. And I sometimes will just randomly, like today's Friday, when I go on my walk, I will, through my mask, say happy Friday to people. And people would just look at me and they're like, and then they would say happy Friday back or have a nice weekend. But I just randomly say it. I don't say it to everybody because it's crowded, but I will just pick people and I go, happy Friday, have a great weekend. And to me, it takes nothing for me to say it, but I love saying it and I love the reaction I get back. And so for me, it's a way of always making the space and the world around me a positive place to be. And I think if more of us feel that way about each other and about the vibe we want to bring, give out in the world, that a lot of times we get it back. And even if we don't get it back from the person directly, we get it back in the universe. And so I think that that's one way. We can't really control other people, right? We can't control what other people do. We can only control what we do. And the way that we see the world is often the way we experience the world. And so I have chosen to see the world as a loving place. And I've traveled a lot alone in 5 continents. I just haven't been to Antarctica by myself yet. And that way of viewing the world has worked out for me. Now, I know I'm lucky. Nobody's attacked me. Nobody has stolen anything from me. I backpacked through Central America alone, and I go out at night. I do all of those things. But part of it is, yes, I have instincts. Yes, I mean, like I'm saying, I could, experience some of the things that Jeanette has experienced. But I also give that vibe out, and I share that with the world. And I think we all need to do that. I think especially now, we really, really need some grace and some gratitude and kindness in the world. again, we can't control anything, but we can control ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, we're at the end of our time for this morning's Talking Circle. Thank you, Jeanette, and thank you, Ruth, for spending this time with us this morning. It was just so wonderful to be here with you, and again to get this additional opportunity to hear some very, very wonderful advice. So thank you all. Namaste.
Thank you all. That was a wonderful first Talking Circle. I can't thank you enough, Dr. White, Jeanette, and Sandra for that. I do want to let you guys know that we're going to break for a lunch here soon, but before then, this is a good time if you are moved by what you've heard to donate. We've posted the link again to donate in the chat page. So if you were able to donate, this would be an awesome time to do that. I also want to encourage you to go online on social media and share your experience here. If you don't have a story, maybe you could just share about what you've learned today. We've heard from some incredible speakers. I know I've been tweeting about it. You can find me on Twitter at Genevieve Rayome. Not Sandra, Dr. White posted her Twitter there. I believe it is Ruth C. White, but you can check in the chat box there. So she's on Twitter as well as other social media platforms. So take the time to go online during this break and share your story or your experience using the My Story, My Superpower hashtag. We are going to break for lunch here for about an hour. We'll come back online at 1 o'clock. But just a heads up, you will be using the exact same link. So you're welcome to exit out of this Zoom, and then just before 1, you can log on using the same Zoom link that you logged on to this morning. So enjoy this time, this much needed break from screens that we have been talking about, and we'll see you in an hour.